Hello, Universe. Welcome to my first ever audiobook app titled Leave School: What Teachers Can't Tell You. This sort of feels like my first day as a high school teacher, where I'm supposed to write my name on the board, assign you to your seat, and hand out my classroom policies. In short, my name is Jim Flannery, sit wherever you want, and there are no rules here. Whenever I listen to a new podcast or watch a new video, I usually decide within the first minute whether I'm going to watch the whole thing. Having just finished pouring countless hours of my life into writing this book, it's a lot of pressure to know I have to do something attention-grabbing to hook you in, or else I'll lose your interest entirely. Rather than being shocking or funny, I'll just be straightforward and honest. The contents of this audiobook are far more valuable than anything I'd ever be allowed to teach in a classroom. It's a great irony, then, that these ideas are not welcome in any classroom. Any teacher who shared all this information with their students would definitely be fired, though it's probably also true that any teacher who knew all of this information would probably quit teaching before they had a chance to share it with their students. You might wonder how it is, then, that I know these things which most teachers don't. The truth is, this information was not easy to find. While it may seem like everything should be discoverable with a simple Google search, you really need to know what terms to punch into Google to get the right results. As a simple example, you get very different results if you Google alternative school instead of alternatives to school. Even after finding information online, much of what I read online felt lifeless and only came to life when I met people in person, all around the United States and internationally, who actually practice the ideas presented in this book. In fact, there are tens of thousands of teens, just in the United States, who are thriving without school. And you can too. Specifically, Leave School is a guide to radically change your thinking about education, shifting the power structure away from the conventional approach of the teacher being in charge and toward the student being in charge of their own learning. Right now, you are your parents' property, and your education is your school's responsibility. If you want to live a more liberated existence, you'll need to take ownership of your life and responsibility for your learning. This book will show you how. This may sound like some kind of old-fashioned alpha male speech your grandfather might give you about responsibility. It's not, I assure you. By taking ownership of your education, you'll be empowered to give yourself permission to stop being so hard on yourself, to stop letting others in authority set the expectations for you, to satisfy yourself, to accept yourself, to know that you are good enough, and to know that you are enough. Responsibility and ownership, and acceptance and compassion can coexist. Though the ideas in this book focus on education and learning, this book is also about living. In order to implement these ideas, you will have to fundamentally change the way you view your role in the world. Away from being a passive recipient of knowledge, riding on the conveyor belt of school that is assembling you into a finished adult human, and instead toward being an active, engaged, living, breathing, hungry, struggling, fighting, and thriving human in this world. The book can be thought of as having 3 parts and 8 main tracks. All the tracks can be streamed or downloaded directly to your device. We begin part 1 by laying the groundwork in tracks 1 and 2, where I explain how I got involved in education, what the main problems are with school, and the character traits you will need to implement the ideas in this book. In part 2, I use tracks 3 through 5 to dive into the technical details of what alternatives to school look like and how you can pursue them. The book culminates in part 3 with tracks 6 through 8, which is my outline for how we can make these alternatives to school accessible to all young people. Finally, I close out with some final thoughts and my long list of thank yous to all the people who helped make this book possible. As you listen to the tracks, you'll notice that each track has a small form, allowing you to tell me what you find confusing or what questions you have. Please complete these forms so that I can get feedback and improve this app. I encourage you to check out all the reference links which I include with each track to support the facts and statistics I present, so that you can see this is not just some crazy idea that I came up with. There is a whole movement supporting these ideas. I also encourage you to complete the actions I suggest at the end of each track. Of course, there's no way for me to know whether you've done any of this. There's no quizzes, no grades. I offer no punishments for not completing the work, and I offer no rewards for your participation. The only reward is in the knowledge you'll gain from this audiobook, which, for some of you, will be absolutely life-changing. If you are curious to learn more, I'll tell you everything I know. Let's get started.